This is Rob Tebbutt for ID Boxing. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Kalle Sauerland of Wasserman. Kalle, always a pleasure. How are you getting on?
Fantastic on days like this. And, you know, fresh off the bat yesterday of finding out that we had 1.9 million viewers on Channel 5 for Harlem Eubank. And today it's another Eubank day, and here we are. Eubank Smith. It is here. The fight talked about by the fans for ages. By public demand, it is signed, sealed, delivered. And here we are. Great press conference today, back and forth. You know, I was just said, I've got to be careful. Callum Smith's doing an interview right next to me, so I'm going to keep this down a bit. But, you know, I obviously have a long history with the Smith family. I've never done anything with Beefy before. I'm just scratching my head whether we've been on cards together or something, but he's a great guy outside the ring. But he's also the most fiery of the Smiths, and as a character. And that back and forth today was about as predictable as the fact it was going to rain today when I got out of bed.
Before we talk about that, you just mentioned his name there, Harlem Eubank, another win this past weekend against Tom Farrell. Good time to be in that kind of around that sort of weight class, really. 140 pounds. We've got Dalton Smith. We've got Adam Azim, who's around here. Good performance. Did get shaken a little bit at the end of the fourth round.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was funny in the post-fight interview. They said he was buzzed in the fourth. I saw he got hit in the fourth. I saw him cover up, and yeah, you know, against Tom Farrell, you're going to get hit. It's a live fight, and you know, but I didn't think it was. You know, I didn't see the legs go or anything like that. I mean, I might have buzzed him, but you know, it's boxing, yeah. And if you're boxing in live fights, you're going to get hit. You want to call it buzz, you want to call it whatever. It's more for me. The interesting part was how he dealt with it in terms of, you know, he knew to hold for a sec, knew to turn, get himself out there, and I think he won 70%, 80% of the rounds after that, at least, you know. So he took it like a man and dished it out like a even bigger man.
Back to this fight, Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Smith. Is this a more difficult fight, in your opinion, than the Conor Benn fight?
Totally different fight. Actually, I can't make up my mind now I mean, Junior's got to sort of assess that as a fighter. I can't work out now. The fact he said he's going to be at 50% rather than 60%, I guess it makes it an easier fight if it's only going to be 50%. But then he also said something around the round table where he said, no, he's a tough fighter. So, I don't know. They're different, very different styles. One is a young guy, and you know, Beefy's been in there with some of the very, very best, and he's been around a long time. The only similarities is they both come from fighting families in my eyes, and they're both men, right? So it's not really, I don't want to do a sort of head-to-head with them. What's tougher? I guess if you look at it on paper, with what they've achieved so far in their careers, Liam Smith, you know, without a doubt. But, you know, I don't know what happens with Ben and what he goes on to write. So I don't want this interview to be pulled out in 10 years' time. So look at that, Wally. You know, I'll say Smith for today.
Fight's at 160 pounds. Of course, Liam coming up from 154 pounds. There was a much discussed weight clause around the Eubank Jr-Benn fight, but this one at 160.
Yeah, no, this was only going to be a middleweight fight. Wasn't Smith's last fight at 160 at Liverpool? I think it was at 160. So
a different level to this, though.
Yeah. But okay, but he had one, let's say, feel-in fight. But I think his move was always to go to 160. Like I said up there, you know, we got age on him as well. Junior doesn't have that with everyone these days, but we've got age on him. And I guess, look, I mean, Liam's going to have to watch his turkeys at Christmas as well this year.
Yanibek Alimkhanuly was a name that was discussed. Of course, the WBO middleweight champion who went the distance with Denzel Bentley, somebody that we know very well over here. Was that ever a potential opponent for Eubank Jr. for this fight?
Nah. Brings nothing to the table apart from that belt, which might become interesting, but not for the moment. Look, you know, we got to make the fights work, and if that's a Janibek fight in the future, bring him over here. We're certainly not going to go do that in some arena in America in front of 200 fans. No, not going to happen. Junior likes the big fights, and you can argue all day long whether it's a belt or not. People will remember your legacy also around what big fights you're in, and You know, let's face it, James DeGale, Billy Joe, you got George Groves, you know, all the big fights, the World Boxing Super Series fights, the big fights he's been in over the years, you know, to go to the States and fight Janny Beck. I think he, you know, what is he, 12-0, 13-0, something like that. I'm sure he's a great fighter. Let him come through a bit. The one belt we do want in that division and want to fight for is obviously Golovkin, you know. But you know, can't look past Smith. Smith is going to bring problems to the table. That's for sure. You know, the Smith family is a proper boxing family. Got it in their blood. He'll know this is it. This is his moment. And I don't know. I mean, you know, he's ticked that box, sort of world champion. Has he? You know, is he in this for that sort of legacy fight with Eubank? You know, is the drive there? I can't make my mind. I mean, Liam's so, you know, feisty and everything else, but he has been a world champion. He can retire on that. You know, is that going to be a motivational factor when it gets into those deeper rounds?
Pay-per-view in January, Kalle. January over the years, kind of January and August, although less so as we've kind of progressed throughout our time in boxing. January, not usually host of many big fights. Obviously on the back of Christmas, this goes in January and on pay-per-view. Talk to me about the decision to do that.
Well, we wanted December. Junior was ready for December. I think, you know, the decision was ultimately from Sky. And that was based around the World Cup, which you can sort of understand. It would have been December 17th, I believe, which is the World Cup final weekend. So not the best time of year to be running a pay-per-view with potentially England in the final. I know that's a potentially, but we all hope it, we all pray it, we all dream it. But, you know, we would look pretty silly then, wouldn't we, you know? Got England in the final on a Sunday and we're promoting a boxing fight on a Saturday night and selling pay-per-views. No, I don't think really that goes down too much. I can see the decision there. And, you know, if you went with a skinny pay-per-view for January, I'd say that's an interesting one. I do think that this is a very loaded pay-per-view. Eubank Smith is a fight that hasn't just come out of nowhere. It's been talked about a long time. You know, I look at a sample of comments, not all the comments, but a sample of comments to gauge a reaction, and the overall reaction has been very, 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 very strongly positive.
It's an excellent fight. It's Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Smith. They're two of the best fighters, certainly domestically. It's not a world title fight, though. Can you understand why some people are critical over the fact that it's pay-per-view, particularly at the minute, as you mentioned earlier, you know, cost of living crisis and what have you?
Yeah. We're in a time of extremely we're in a time of high inflation, but we're also a time of high inflation in belts. If it was Janny Beck, yeah. So Eubank or Janny Beck versus Eubank, and I put that on pay-per-view in January. I'd like to see the comments on that. I think boxing is more, especially at the moment, it's like, what can you do that's, you know, feels like could be an historic fight? This does feel like, you know, it could be an absolute war that we remember, and maybe we don't even need a rematch, or maybe we want to do it again. I don't know, because if you look at it as a boxing purist and look at just the styles, there's not going to be much going backwards there. I wouldn't say that defense is either man's forte.
Absolutely. You mentioned the rematch there, rematch clause, kind of discussed, one of the bigger Paul Smith.
Got that on camera. And the bigger one as well. I'm really worried now. Security, get me out of here. All those days ago in Kiel, Arthur Abraham.
The legendary Paul Smith Jr. Back to the rematch clause. I spoke to you before Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. Of course, the fight that didn't happen. There was no rematch clause for that. Words from your mouth. There is one for this. Explain the difference.
Well, I'm not gonna discuss a contract that's actually confidential, but let's assume that there wasn't a rematch clause in the Conor Benn fight.
I don't remember what you said to me about the interview, do you?
I can't remember it now. But one thing what I would say is, if we would have gone to also sorting out a rematch clause, that fight would have probably got signed in 2027. Probably would have been better off that way in hindsight. But no, joking aside, no, it wasn't in there at the time, apparently, like you all say. And this one has one. Standard process, when you're the A side, you go for a rematch clause. Shoot me, love me, hate me, is what I do, and I won't stop doing it.
Final couple of quick ones for me. I know you don't want to talk about it, but it is absolutely relevant. Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. Eddie Hearn said that he expects that fight to happen potentially next summer, next winter. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that we potentially see that fight in the future?
First of all, just to clarify, I said I didn't think it was appropriate to talk about it up there. I think it would have been disrespectful to Junior to talk about that again, and also to Liam Smith. But of course, it's talked, and once again, we have to wait to see what comes out of it. It's a trial, so I don't want to shoot a man before he's proven guilty, and same in life, and it's the same in this instance here. I really don't know what's going on. I hear the whispers, Rob. I guess you hear as well. What do you want me to say? I think to be fair to Matchroom, I don't think they know everything either, because it's a personal case right now. Off the back of that, there can be a lot of things happening, and there's a lot of different paths this can take, and a lot of different roads it can go up. But for the moment, it's very much Conor Benn business, and I certainly can't comment on that.
The final question on that is, this is the first time I've spoke to you since the infamous couple of days now, that Wednesday and Thursday it is, since the start of October. There was a lot of criticism around the promotion of that event, of course a co-promotion with yourselves and Matchroom, about the decision to try and put that fight on. Just your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very simple, strip away all the BS of what was happening around it. We had a contractual situation where we had a fight that was contracted. The fight was on. Spoke to Junior. He received his medical advice and the different things from an expert. And ultimately, people said, "Oh, why didn't you pull him?" Well, how? How? I have a contract. If I don't deliver, don't forget the fight wasn't. It was the board didn't come out and ban Ben. By doing that, it would have made everything ultimately a lot simpler. But they didn't. In fact, they still haven't banned Ben to today. I think he just didn't renew his license, if I understand it correctly. So that's what it is. There's not really much more. It's not that I'm not allowed to say. It's not. What else can I say to it? So we fought our guts out to get the fight on. But at the same time, we also understood, that, the situation was out of our hands in the end, So it was a bizarre one, it was bizarre. For some of it we were involved, and some of it obviously we weren't involved. We were the aggrieved party, so to speak, and it was, certain informations that we didn't have, and some that we did have.
Okay, and final question from me. Let's bring it back to this. Chris Eubank Jr., your man, against Liam Smith. Two-part question. First, how does the fight end? And second, why should people be tuning in live on Sky Sports Box Office on January the 21st?
I'm going to answer them two and then one.
I got them the wrong way around.
That's all right. So why watch? I think it has the makings of a historic fight. This is a weight class that throws up amazing fights that we talk about for years to come. And I believe that the styles, the personalities in the build-up, but build-ups don't really, they sort of get washed away over the years. I believe it's a fight that you'll go back and watch in 10 years' time. And whether you want to be there or watch it on television, it's an historic moment. And it's two guys who are going to be in fierce camps now to put that on, and you know, at the end, I think we're going to witness history. I really do. I think it's going to be a great fight. I do think it's going to be a tough fight. Then coming to your first point, like I said up there, we got the speed, we got the youth, we got I think the better CV and experience. I saw a few experts saying not. I just think it's all stacked in our favour, and then I'm going to just add in, we got that extra bit of size as well, and size does matter.
Okay, Kalle Sauerland, always a pleasure to catch up with you. Thanks very much for speaking to ID Boxing. Look forward to catching up with you soon.
Love to be on ID Boxing. Thank you so much, Rob.